Welcome to CBTV. Chapter 7 Nirvana is pleasant state of coolness and freshness that touch. We all can touch in this very life. By using mindfulness, concentration, and insight to transform our suffering, we can touch nirvana in the here and now. Nirvana is not some distant place in a distant future. Nirvana is a word that comes from ancient rural dialect of India. In the Buddha time, as in many places around the world today, rural families would cook over a small fire made of straw, dung, wood, or even rye husk. Every morning, the first thing the mother would do is light the fire to prepare breakfast for family members going out to work in the fields. She would hold her hands above the ashes from the night before to see if they were still warm. If they were, so she would only need to add some straw or twig to rekindle the fire. But if the fire has gone out, she would find that ashes were completely cold. After a fire has completely gone out, if you sink your hand into the ashes, it will pleasantly cold. The Buddha used the word nirvana to describe a pleasant experience of the cooling of the flames of our afflictions. Many of us are burning in the fire of our craving, fears, anxiety, despair, or regrets. Our anger or jealousies, or even our idea about death and loss can burn us up inside. But when we transform our suffering and remove our wrong idea, very naturally we can touch a refreshing bliss. That is nirvana. There is an intimate connection between our suffering and nirvana. If we did not suffer, how could we recognize the peace of nirvana? Without suffering, there can be no awakening from suffering, just as without the hot coals, we cannot have the cool ashes. Suffering and awakening go together. As we learn to handle our suffering while learning to generate moments of nirvana. Nirvana does not have to be something big, something we spend a lifetime practicing for, hoping to one day experience. Each one of us can touch small moments of nirvana every day. Suppose you're walking barefoot and you accidentally step on a briar, and a dozen thorn pierces your foot. Immediately you lose all peace and happiness. But as soon as you are able to remove one thorn and then another, you begin to get some release, you get some nirvana. And the more thorns you remove, the greater the relief and peace. In the same way, the removal of afflictions is the presence of nirvana. As you recognize, embrace, and transform your anger, fears, and despair, you start to experience nirvana. Touching nirvana. The Buddha taught that we can enjoy nirvana in our very body. We need our body, we need our feelings, perception, mental formations, and consciousness in order to touch nirvana. We can touch it with our feet, our eyes, our hand. It is thanks to being alive with our human body that we can experience the cooling of the flames and generate moment of nirvana. When we cool the flames of our anger and having understood its roots, the anger transforms into compassion. This is the experience of nirvana. When we experience the peace and freedom of walking meditation, we are touching our cosmic body, we are touching nirvana. When we stop running and let go of all our worries about the future and regrets about the past, and come back to enjoy the wonders of life in the present moment, so this is when we touch nirvana. It is by getting in touch deeply with the historical dimension in the present moment that we can touch the intimate. The two do not exist separately. As we touch our cosmic body, the world of phenomena, we get in touch with the ultimate, the realm of reality in itself. When we see the world of phenomena from the perspective of the intimate, we see that if there were death, there could not be birth. If there were no suffering, there could be no happiness. Without mud, there could be no lotus. We depend on each other to manifest. Birth and death are just ideas at the level of the historical dimension, but not the true nature of reality in the intimate dimension, which transcends all ideas and notions, all signs of appearance. In the intimate dimension of reality in itself, there are no birth and no death, no suffering and no happiness, no coming or no going, no good and no evil. When we can let go of all ideas and notions, including the ideas of a self, a human being, a living being, or a lifespan, we touch the true nature of reality in itself, we touch nirvana. Nirvana is the ultimate dimension. It is the existence, extinction, and letting go of all notions and ideas. The concentration on emptiness, silenceness, aimlessness, impermanence, and engraving, and letting go all help us to get a breakthrough into the true nature of reality. By contemplating deeply our physical body and the realm of phenomena, we get in touch with nirvana, the true nature of the cosmos, the God body, and we experience this happiness and freedom than fear, while no longer afraid of birth, of death and death being and non-being. Just as birds enjoy soaring in the sky and deer enjoy roaming in the wood, so do the wise one enjoy dwelling in nirvana. We don't have to look very far to find nirvana, because it is our true nature in this very moment. We cannot remove the intimate from yourself. To just touch nirvana is to realize the inside of no birth and no death in our daily life. Nirvana is not eternal death. Many people mistakenly think that nirvana describes blissful state or place we enter after we die. You may have heard it said that the Buddha entered nirvana after he died. It sounds like nirvana is a place we go after death, but it is very misleading, and it can give rise to many dangerous misunderstandings. It suggests we cannot touch nirvana when we live alive. We have to die in order to get there. But this is not at all what the Buddha taught. One, I was on teaching tour in Malaysia. As we drove through Kuala Lumpur, we saw billboard advertising a Buddhist funeral service company calling itself Nirvana. I thought it was very unkind to the Buddha to identify Nirvana with death like that. The Buddha never identified Nirvana with death. Nirvana is associated with life in the here and now. One of the greatest misunderstandings of Western Buddhist scholars has been to define Nirvana as a kind of eternal death that ends the circle of reincarnation. This is a grave misunderstanding of deepest meaning of nirvana. How would millions of people follow a religion that teaches eternal death? The very idea of eternal death is still caught in notion of being and non-being, birth and death. But true nature of reality transcends all the notion. It is only when we are alive that we can touch nirvana. I hope someone in Kuala Lumpur might be able to convince that funeral company to change its name. The one reality of interbeing. With the insight of interbeing, we have seen how nothing in the world, including our body, exists by itself alone. All things are mutually dependent on one another. If things were never dirty, how could they be immaculate? Without suffering, there could never be happiness, and without evil, there could never be goodness. If there were no suffering, how could we look deeply into it to give rise to understanding and love? Without suffering, how could there be insight? If there were no wrong, how could we know what right is? We say God is good, God is love. But if God is good and God is love, what does this mean? God is not in those places where there is no goodness and love. This is a very big question. In the light of Buddhist teachings, we can say that the intimate nature of reality, the true nature of God, transcends all nations, including the notion of good and evil. To say anything less is to diminish God. In the face of devastating natural disaster in which thousands of people die, there are those who ask, how can God, who is good, allow such suffering? When we hear news of war, terrorist attacks, natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, and hurricanes, we may feel overwhelmed by despair. This is hard to make sense of it. We don't understand why some of us have to endure such suffering and death, but not others. The inside of emptiness can help. When a young baby, an elderly grandmother, a teenager, or a young man dies in disaster, we feel somehow that a part of us also die. We die with them because we don't have a separate soul. We all belong to the same human species. And so far as we are still alive, we are also still alive in us. We can touch this insight of ourselves. We are inspired to live in such a way that they can continue beautifully in us. Nirvana, the ultimate nature of reality, is indeterminate. It is mutual. That is why everything in the cosmos is a wonder. The lotus is a wonder, and so too is the mud. The magnolia is a wonder, and so too the poison oak. Idea of good and evil are created by our own mind, not by nature. When we let go of and release all these ideas, we can see the true nature of reality. We cannot call an earthquake, storm, or volcano good or evil. Everything has its role to play. So we may need to examine our way of seeing God. If God is only on the other side of goodness, then God can be the ultimate reality. We cannot even say that God is the ground of all beings. Because if God is the ground of being, what is the ground of non-being? We cannot speak of evil or of God in terms of existing or not existing, being or non-being. Even the peace and happiness that arise from touching the ultimate come from within us, not from the ultimate itself. The ultimate nirvana is not itself bliss or joy, because no notion or category like bliss or goodness can be applied to the ultimate. The ultimate transcends all categories. Don't wait for nirvana. When the Buddha attained enlightenment at the foot of the Bodhi tree, he was a human being, and after his enlightenment, he was still a human being with all the suffering and affliction that have having a human body entail. The Buddhas were not made of stone. He experienced feelings and emotion, pain and cold, hunger and fatigue, just like all of us. We shouldn't think that we experience the suffering and afflictions of being human. We cannot touch peace, we cannot touch nirvana. Even after his enlightenment, the Buddha experienced suffering. From his teaching and stories about his life, we know that he suffers. But the key point is that he knew how to suffer. His awakening came from suffering.